Hello, everyone. Welcome to Voices of Civil War Heroines with freed female reenactors of distinction. And I'm so happy to welcome this wonderful group of ladies back who really take you back in time to some really really compelling characters, real life people who lived over 150 years ago. And it's just an amazing experience, like going into a time machine with Freed to be really be taken back. So they really connect with the spirit and all the stories from that era. So you're in for a treat tonight. Before I get started, I'd like to tell you about some other events that Silver Spring Town Center has coming up. We do our Veterans Concert, our Tribute to America's Veterans Concert every year on Veterans Day. And we are doing everything virtually now because we are not gathering indoors in person. So we were doing some in-person events, but if they were outdoor. But you can watch either on Zoom or on our Facebook page, Silver Spring Town Center's group page on Facebook. This Thursday at 7, we have our Tribute to America's Veterans Concert featuring the Archie Edwards Blues Heritage Ensemble, and they are an awesome group of blues musicians. Hope you can tune in for that. Another kind of Veterans Day theme we have is we have a featured artist tomorrow, New Directions in the studio with Exploring New Directions in the studio with artist and Air Force veteran Amy Bandel. That's tomorrow night, November 10th at 7 o'clock. And during the day, we have our monthly Sparkle program, which we do in collaboration with Silver Spring Village once a month, the second Wednesday at 2 o'clock. And tomorrow's Sparkle is our autumn collage workshop, and that's facilitated by artist Lauren Lay, who is also on SSTCI's board of directors, and she hosts our art salon. So bring your materials to do some hands-on collage work with us in celebration of the beautiful autumn season that we have. And then on Thursday, please mute if you're not up yet. On Thursday, November 18th, we have a holistic approach to creativity with TV producer and commercial drone pilot Mike Sobola with Mid-Atlantic Drones. So he's a drone pilot and TV film producer who will be talking about creativity. And then on Tuesday, November 30th, if you love wildlife and especially birds, I invite you to a bird's eye view, wildlife through the lens of photographer Michael Oberman. That's also at 7 o'clock on Tuesday, November 30th. And we have more in store for December. All of our events are made possible with generous support from Montgomery County, United Therapeutics, the Arts and Humanities of Montgomery County, Maryland State Arts, and many others. And now let's get started with the program. We welcome Voices of Civil War Heroines with freed Female Reenactors of Distinction, which is an auxiliary organization of the African American Civil War Museum of Washington, D.C. The Female Reenactors of Distinction is a group of ladies who desire to teach American history that perhaps has been forgotten or overlooked by the public educational system, the theater and motion picture industry, and many social organizations around the country. The inspiration for their organization came in 2005 when they attended a meeting of the African American Civil War Museum in DC for the explicit purpose of helping the museum with their Founders Day celebration, May 19th through 22nd of 2005. They had a vision that they could help at this event by being hostesses dressed as as their ancestors did in 1863. The general public had never witnessed such a scene. They thought their enslaved ancestors only worked in the fields in rags and wished for a brighter day. Thus, they were an instant hit, and spectators asked them to continue such a performance and form an organization. In August of 2005, they came together for their first meeting and discussion about a future together, deciding they would portray African American ladies of the Civil War era. They each began researching who these women were. They each chose a lady to portray, and then came the name with the acronym FREED. They received numerous requests to appear in schools, libraries, community groups, and various other programs of government agencies, social institutions, and various other organizations. They also participate in venues such as conferences, parades, which seek to provide information and exposure to the legacy of African Americans' contribution to America's history. It is very important to teach our next generation of leaders America's history, and an integral part of their mission involves encouraging them to set goals which honor the foundations laid by their ancestors. They also seek to bring recognition to the heroic courage of the U.S. colored troops. President Lincoln in 1865 stated that without the military help of the U.S. colored troops, the war against the South could not have been won. And now I'd like to present Freed, Female Reenactors of Distinction.
Well, good evening, everyone. It's so great to be here with you. Can you hear me, Lisa? Am I okay?
Yes.
Okay. Hold on one second. There's some writing across my screen. All right. I am Pat Tyson, and I am the coordinator for our group of ladies. We have approximately 20 ladies that are active. And tonight you're just going to get a sampling of 4 of us. The 5th person, which would been here tonight portraying Miss Charlotte, had a meeting to go to at the very last minute, and I will explain more about that after the 4 of us perform. I just want to be absolutely certain that all of our ladies are on. Being in person is easy, but being on virtual, sometimes we have a problem trying to sign in or something. Is Carol Gordon on? I know Asa Gordon is on, but is Carol Gordon on?
Yes.
Carol?
I'm here, but you cannot see me. I don't know what the problem is.
Oh, okay. Well, what?
Can't turn on the video. Oh, here it is. Okay.
Oh, can't turn on the video?
Yes, there I am.
Oh.
I'm here.
Oh, great. So Carol Gordon will be our first lady. And is Catherine Ajenafuja on? Catherine? She does have a backup, Teresa Saxton. Catherine, I talked to her about an hour ago, and so I expect her. If she's not there, I will go on after Carol to give Catherine an opportunity to show, and then Bobby will be our last lady. All right. Thank you so much for being with us this evening, everyone. And afterward, there will be a question and answer session. And we're very thankful to have this opportunity to talk about this history, which is American history. Now, although you'll only see 4 of us tonight who are African American, we are integrated. We do have other ladies. But let's just get started with Mrs. Gordon.
Good evening. I am Frances Ann Rollin of Charleston, South Carolina. I was born to a free family of color before the war. My father was a successful businessman. He had a lumber company in Charleston, and we lived a comfortable existence of the colored aristocracy of that time. My four sisters and I went to parish school where we learned to speak French fluently. J'ai bien parlé français avant même d'apprendre l'anglais. After as the war approached, my parents became concerned about my four sisters and me. And so they sent us to five different cities in the North. I went to Philadelphia, where I attended the Quaker School for Colored Youth. It was there that I discovered that I had a love and a talent for writing. I kept journals because I wanted to write down my thoughts. I was away from home, separated from my family, and I began to write every day about the people that I met and things that were happening around me. I had a talent for it. After the war was over, I returned to Charleston and I became a teacher in a freedmen's school. It was there that I met Major Martin R. Delaney of the U.S. Colored Troops. He came to my aid after an incident in which my civil rights were violated. I thought, the war's over. I have my civil rights. And I bought a first-class ticket on a riverboat from Charleston to Beaufort. When I got on the boat, the captain told me that I could not ride first class after I had bought a first-class ticket. And so I sued. And with the help of Major Delaney, I won the suit. The captain was arrested and tried before military court. He was found guilty and fined $250. Victoire pour moi et pour tout le monde. My suit was cited as an inspiration for the 14th Amendment Equal Protection Clause of the 1875 Civil Rights Act. And so that was my first contribution. When everything was settled with the suit, Major Delaney asked me if I would write his biography. He gave me hundreds of documents. He learned that I wanted to be a writer. And so he gave me hundreds of documents and promised me financial assistance. The financial assistance never came, but I took the documents and I wrote The Life and Public Services of Martin R. Delaney. Now, I don't know if you can see this, but it says the author is Frank A. Rollin. I was told at the time that no one would ever buy a book written by a Black woman. And so I was to use the name Frank instead of my own name, Frances. The book was published in 1883. It was the first biography published by in America by a woman of a person of African descent. I later married and had 4 children. It was not a happy marriage, and I decided to take my children and move to Washington, D.C., where I worked in the office of Frederick Douglass. And I consider that my greatest contributions are my diary and my diaries, the biography of Major Martin R. Delaney, and especially the suit that led to the civil rights legislation. These are my greatest accomplishments. I am Frances Ann Rollin. Thank you.
Thank you, Frances. Thank you so very much. I am Hallie Quinn Brown. I don't know if you've ever heard of me or not, but I was born in 1850 and I passed away in 1949. Oh, I tell you, I was here a long time and enjoyed and was involved in quite a few things. I'm first and foremost a teacher, and that I'm an author, an elocutionist, a community activist, and a club woman. In my time, in order to get things done, women formed clubs and they took on the subjects that were necessary. The war was over and we had to get our people educated. We had to help elect the right people in office to try to help us. And we did so many things to help others. But first and foremost, I just love teaching, and I still do today. And as I come back, I see so much that has changed here in America since 1949. And it's so good. I would like to say that my father was enslaved in Frederick, Maryland. And he was owned by an Irish woman who owned the plantation. She allowed him to work and buy his freedom. And eventually he brought not only his freedom, but that of his brother. And when he moved off of the plantation, he married and met and married my mother. She was owned by a Revolutionary War officer, former Revolutionary War officer, and given to his son. So they married and moved to Pittsburgh, where my dad worked on the Underground Railroad out of a hotel that's no longer there, known as the Monongahela Hotel. It's no longer there. It was a hotel that they used secretly to smuggle people who had been brought there, being sold or on their way to a new plantation. And it was his job and some of the other secret staff to smuggle that person out of the hotel, get them to the Quakers, and the Quakers would put them on the train going to Canada, where they would be free. So I'm one of 6 children. But my parents worked in that area and were there for a while until my mother became ill. And when she became ill, my father put us on that train and we went to Canada. So I grew up in Canada until it was time to come back. The war was over here then, and it was time to come back and for me to go to school. My brother and I enrolled in college, Wilberforce University, and in Wilberforce, Ohio. After graduating there, I felt that at that university, we all were challenged. It was run by AME Bishop Payne, and we were challenged to find out what God wanted us to do with our lives. And so I really wanted to teach, and I was involved in some of the drama programs and organizations there. But I graduated and went to a little town in the South called Yazoo, Mississippi. And there were, even though the war was over and people were free to go and do what they pleased, you can imagine they had no money. They didn't know what to do. I went there and started some classes, and we saw the condition, first of all, of the people, and we got clothing for them. Their shoes had holes in them, their clothing wasn't right and their hair wasn't fixed, and they wanted help, and we were there to joyfully help them. They wanted to become citizens of a society where they would not have to depend upon someone else to take care of them, but they could do their own work, do their own speaking, enhance their own talents, make a contribution to society. Therefore, I stayed there for a while. That was one of the places I stayed. And we took care of the adults and the children in educating them. I was also, I moved to Allen University in Columbia, South Carolina, where I was on the staff, and then I became dean of the university for a while. And from there, I went to Booker T. Washington's institution And I was Dean of Women there for a while and did some talking and teaching. I made my way back up, coming north, and I opened a night school for people migrating from the South, where they could learn how to read and write and speak. You know, if you don't know how to speak, people look over you. So it was very important to teach them the right way to be heard. And after, in that particular capacity, I never sat still very long, but what I did accomplish, I was very pleased with and very thankful to be a part of. I met Susan B. Anthony and became in women's issues and movements. I represented the United States and in Europe in conferences for women. I also was introduced to Queen Victoria, where I performed, lectured, and did other things there. In those days, most of your Black educational institutions, in order to keep going, they would take trips to Europe where they could raise money. And I was raising money for Wilberforce University. When I came back, I got really involved in the politics of the Republican Party and helped to find out who would do the right things for us. I was part of the 1920 Republican Party convention, where I spoke in the nomination of Roy G. Harding for President of the United States, and as a nominating voice. But I also became involved in issues that we today, you more than likely are involved in here. But you know, of all the things that I did and all the things that I felt like were certainly worthwhile issues, the things that I most enjoyed were working with young people. And as I come back to just visit you temporarily here tonight and to say hello, that all of us who have left are doing great, I just wanted to make mention to you tonight of the fact that your children don't look happy. They look kind of sad. They don't have that free looking, freedom that young people should be able to do. And they're always looking down. And I understand that that's a little telephone that they have in their hands. They're speaking on that or typing out something, and it's just amazing what comes out of that little telephone. But when they're not looking in the phone, they just don't have the expression that they seem to be enjoying life. They seem to be bored. And I'm concerned about that because they have so many clothes and so many different colors. And the food, oh, the restaurants you have here are absolutely phenomenal. Especially that place that has what they call the Golden Arches. When people come out of there, their bags of food smell so good. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness. You know, when the US colored troops fought in the Civil War so that I could do this and others could do it also, they sometimes didn't have food readily handled unless they were in a field or something where there was something, or they always carried in their knapsack on their uniforms something like a hard biscuit called hardtack. And they had to soften that up in some kind of what they call coffee or mixture and soften it up and take a bite out of it. And it was not necessarily a hygienic piece you would want to eat. Maybe it had a worm in it or something like that, that had caught up in it as it was being made, wherever they got it from. And so the food, they just needed to keep going. And so they took what they could to eat. And yet today, oh my gosh, your food is just fabulous. And you all look so wonderful. But there's another aspect too. As I look at your youth and they don't look happy, they don't appear to be happy. Why, I told you about the young people that I went down to help teach and help them get clothing and everything. But But your children are walking around with holes in their pants. Their knees are out. They've got rips and tears in their jeans. Oh my goodness, it's amazing. I'm thinking to myself, don't these children have any clothing? Why don't you clothe them? Why don't you help them get some clothes? And so they go along, and then the young men, their pants are coming down. And oh my gosh, I mean, in war times, in order to keep a man in jail, they wouldn't have let them have a belt, because no self-respecting man would go out in the street with his pants down or falling down. So, you know, they don't realize that history. And mothers and grandmothers and grandfathers and uncles and aunts out there that I'm speaking to tonight, help your children. Let them know they're worth more than walking around in rags. Somebody told me it was a style. And I thought, oh my goodness, what kind of style is that? Oh, they're better than that. And they need to be told that they are. And they need to be helped to know that they are. So I always ask when I'm in a school with young people to tell me the definition of freedom. And they say doing what they want to do, doing what's right within the law, and some other things. And I always say, that's great. You've got it. However, I want you to put one other aspect to that word freedom. Freedom is not only doing what I want to do, but what I ought to do. And they get it. They start looking at each other. And I say, if you can do what you're supposed to do, you're free. But you know when you do the wrong thing, if you can't do what you ought to do, you're not free. And you're in a wonderful country where you have the privilege of doing whatever you want to do. And you don't have to be penalized for things that maybe in other countries they can't do. But I want you to help others. I want you to understand that you must respect those in authority over you. Your teacher, your parents, those who are out to help you, and they care about you. And so they get the message. To you, my adult audience, don't take freedom for granted, that it'll always be here. Unless we take care of Miss Freedom now, and she goes away, she may not come back. I say to you, do the right thing. Help others along the way that have been placed in your path. And I think that if we continue to do that, and instead of self-serving, pray for our government leaders. They need us. They need us. They need our help. If we can do no more than lift up a prayer for wisdom for them, it'll be the best thing that can happen in the world. And I just want you to know that I love you, and I thank you for the invitation to be with you this evening. May God bless you and your family. And whatever your line of business happens to be, do it wholeheartedly. Thank you. Now, I'm not sure if Mrs. Ajanafuja is here. If she is not, is she present with us? Is Mrs. Saxton present with us? All right, if not, we will have next the young lady that is with us. Okay. Ms. Coles. Unmute yourself, please.
Yeah. You're unmuted. Hi. Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not sure. My daughter's operating the machine for me. Well, I want to introduce myself. My character is a combination of all that I have read about slavery, and even in the readings where the slaves said that they were treated very well, but they still had a desire for freedom that never went away. So I want to introduce my character is named Hattie. My name is Hattie. I don't know how old I is, and I've long forgot the next name given to me at my birth. One thing I do remember, my mama's face. She just there and she looked me back. Mama, I told them you were waiting. They warned me. They laughed at me. They stuffed me. But I fought them, Mama. I screamed. I hollered. I kicked, and I even bit them. It hurt me so bad. I don't know how I survived that long voyage. Many, many, many of us. My first master told us we were brought here to toil for the white man. And my second master said that we were black and he could do anything that he wanted to us, because there were no laws. So I decided then that I was not a slave because I didn't volunteer to this job.
Excuse me, Bobby.
And
Your,
then
your sound is going in and out. And if maybe you can set it to original sound in the upper corner, left corner. Put original sound on.
I don't know. What does that mean, the original sound on?
It's if yeah, you're not seeing as much because I'll make her a co-host so you see what I see here.
Okay.
Okay. Do you see it in the upper left corner now?
I see remove spotlight recording, but I do not see it.
Upper left corner of her video. It says original sound off, maybe, and then you change it to on. Or maybe it's just the mic, and maybe she needs to be closer.
Okay, let me see if I can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm moving it closer to her. So just sorry. So maybe try speaking up more, okay?
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Okay, sorry.
yes. What do you want me to do?
Just start where you were.
Lisa?
Mom, start where you
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, just maybe go back a little bit because we missed a little bit, but we can hear you now.
Okay. Well, I'll start with my first master told us we were brought here to toil for the white man. My second master said that we were his property and he could do with us as he pleased because there was no law protecting us, no law at all that we could depend on. Well, I decided that I want no slave. I was enslaved. I didn't volunteer for the job. I was captured, stolen, and enslaved. Well, let me tell you something. They's always talking about us slaves, like they's talking about a herd of cattle. I ain't never seen them beat their cattle the way they beat us slaves. So if we belongs to them, why do they treat us so bad? Every morning we wake up to the crack of the driver's lash. We work the fields, we plant and tend the crops. We cultivate the rice, all to the crack of the driver's lash. We pick the cotton and we process the indigo, and we work the animals, all to the crack of the driver's lash. We toil all day and we suffer all night. Well, I found out a long time ago that my blood was the same color as my master's. And my mistress' blood, monthlies, looked just like mine. I'll ask you, what makes me so different? I done nursed all of their children, so much so I scarcely had any left of my own. So what makes me so different? Think I a woman too? Only time I counts for anything is on the auction block and during the big count. But even then, I only add up to 3/5 of a person. I have been trying to reckon what is 3/5 of a person. How does that add up to somebody whole? I have been sold 4 times since coming to this place, this land. And I've been allotted more times than I can remember. On this new plantation, my name is listed as Hattie, right behind them horses and pigs they bought that day. My life has been one of hardship and toil. One by one, my 10 children have all been sold for me. My youngest is no more than 6 years old, and I can still hear him clutching and screaming after me as they dragged him away, hollering, "Mom, Mama, Mama, please, don't let them take me away." He was hollering like I was hollering all them years ago when they took me away. Mom, when I close my eyes, I could feel my home and my mama's loving embrace. Sometimes I feel like an even I can hear the drums drumming the heart and soul of my home. Sometimes I wish I were dead and live another day as a slave. Never a woman, always a thing. Now, there's drums of war drumming all over this land. They are drumming from one plantation to another. The planters are forming what they call the home guard. They want us slaves to help them with homeland security. If I were to help anybody, it would be my people. With more blood, sweat, and tears in this here land than they ever will have. The planters are worried that our boys are gonna run away and join what they call the devil blue coats. Well, I hope that my sons, wherever they are, will join them devil blue coats and run them rebs to ground. But this morning, I had my mind set on freedom. Yes, I chose to run away and join them devil blue coats wherever they are. And for the first time since coming here, I will know what freedom is. And all I can say to that is, I don't really know what freedom is, but it sounds awful good to me. And I will have to listen to the back of the driver's lash no more. And I will be able to choose my own name. I choose Paul, contraband of war. The first time my labors won't be used by the devil. That labor won't be used so this war for the South. I'm gonna be free. Hallelujah, I'm going to be free. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bobby. Ms. Hattie, thank you so much. I wonder if Ms. Charlotte Fortin Grimke is with us tonight. If we don't have Ms. Grimke, is Ms. Grimke there? All right, if we don't have Ms. Grimke.
If Miss Jenna Fuja isn't available, I'll do just a very brief summary.
All right.
Oh, Tony Fajim. Okay, who was that will do a summary? A brief.
Teresa Saxton.
Okay, I'm just trying to find her in the list here. Sorry.
I'm not on there.
She's just one of the ladies.
Okay.
Of Freed.
Okay. And her video is on. Is her video on?
It should be.
Yes, it is.
I see. I found you. I found you.
Okay.
Okay, great. Now a spotlight.
I'm coming to you this evening from my home at 1608 R Street in Northwest Washington. I'm 72 years old, and I've retired from public life as of now. But I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. I was born August 18th in 1937 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. My family was a well-to-do family. We basically got a wonderful start from my grandfather's wealth. He invented a sailing device that was very profitable, and he made a lot of money off of it. So my family was well-to-do, and we were freeborn Blacks in Philadelphia. But our money didn't shield us from segregation and the practices that we couldn't go anywhere we wanted to go. We were still restricted in public transportation and theaters and other places. So we were not able to move about in a free society, even though we were wealthy people. And my family felt the need to join the abolitionist anti-slavery movement, so that most of the family's money was used to fight segregation and slavery. I was unfortunately lost my mother when I was very young. And because my dad remarried, I was raised primarily by an aunt and my fraternal grandmother. But I got a very good education at home until I was 16. And then I was sent to school in Massachusetts, where I received a formal education. It was important for me to learn to stand on my own. And when I left home and went to school, I started journaling. And most of what people talk about me, I guess now, is because I kept a journal of all of the places that I felt were important and the people that I met in my life. And basically just to know that at the end of my life, when I looked at it, I would want to see that I had accomplished something. What I did with my life was to become a teacher. I taught in South Carolina, the children of free slaves at the Port Royal experiment. And I was also there at the time and able to help with the Massachusetts 54th soldiers who were wounded. So that gave me a great sense of accomplishment and pride to be able to help in the Civil War effort. But my own health wasn't that good, so I had to return from South Carolina back to Pennsylvania. And throughout my teaching career, I was so blessed to be able to help children. And eventually I moved to the Washington, D.C. area, where I taught at the M Street School, which is now known as Dunbar. So I'm probably what you would call a Washingtonian in my later life. There I also met Francis Grimke, who was a pastor. And in fact, he served as the pastor of the 15th Street Presbyterian Church in Washington, D.C. Unlike me, Francis and his brother Archibald had been born into slavery, and their father was a white slave owner. Fortunately for Francis and Archibald, they had two aunts who saw to it that they received a formal education. And they went all the way through college, graduating and becoming very successful men. Archibald, in fact, became an ambassador. And I'm told that the current residence of the African American Civil War Museum is located now in the Grimke School that was named for my brother-in-law, Archibald. Throughout my life, as I said, I taught, I wrote poetry, I wrote some magazine articles, and I was blessed to be associated with a number of people, some of whom you might know, Walt Whitman, Frederick Douglass. These were people who I worked with, who I was proud to serve with, and who inspired me to be the activist that I became. I'm fortunate and blessed to have been a founding member of the National Association of Colored Women's Clubs. And there is, I understand, a chapter that is still in the Washington, D.C. area. Francis and I married. I was older than he. In fact, I was 41 years old when I married him. We had one daughter, Cordelia, and unfortunately, she only lived for 6 months. But we cherished her, and we had a very active and fulfilling life. And as I've said, now I am retired from public life at the age of 72, and I'm still a resident of the District of Columbia, watching things, many things happen. But I thank you for inviting me, for coming this evening. And I will invite you to learn more about me through my journals. My name was Charlotte Orton Grimke. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Ladies and gentlemen, there was one other lady that was to be with us tonight, and she was going to portray Miss Charlotte Scott. Now, that name may not be familiar to you, but down at the Fort Lincoln Park near Capitol Hill, there is the Emancipation statue where President Lincoln and there is a former slave who is there on that pedestal. At one end of the park is that statue. At the other end is a statue of Mary McLeod Bethune and some children. And in the news about a year and a half ago, there was an uproar about statues, and people who were not familiar with this statue of Mr. Lincoln and the former slave gentleman, Archer Alexander, wanted that one to come down as well. We have fought as the ladies of the Civil War, and knowing that Miss Scott had been enslaved, and then she was freed to go about her business. When she heard that President Lincoln had been assassinated, she felt like that was probably the best friend the colored people ever had. And she gave, out of her earnings, when she started working, she gave the first $5 towards building a monument in his memory. She requested that. I cannot tell you adequately the story of this because Ms. Coles, who portrays her, brings in a lot of that history and the fact that that statue was paid by the colored people. There is much going on about that statue, and at present, we are talking to the National Park Service because we would like to see that statue maintained as it is there at the park. A suggestion was made by Frederick Douglass of proper signage for it so that it would be explainable. It would be interpreted in the right direction. And unfortunately, it was never done. And therefore, we, before the disturbance came, noticed the fact that the statue was not, park was not properly labeled, and some other figures should have been there with it. Therefore, we're still talking with the Park Service and about the statue. And Ms. Coles tonight is in a meeting that apparently has something to do with the statue and could not be with us tonight. But we want to thank you for having us. And I would like to say that the ladies that you see in the audience with the different headpieces are part of the Female Reenactors of Distinction. Our acronym is FREE. If one of those ladies would care to do her character, I think we could put her on the microphone. If any of the ladies who are with us tonight, any one person would like to share with us your history. This is American history.
Pat, like I explained when I got started, this is Bobby Coles. I have read a lot of books, a lot of narratives that these slaves were giving. Quakers started compiling these narratives in 1837 in hopes of using these stories to end slavery, so people would know how cruel slavery was. And so I made up the Lady Hattie using historical information, such as the 3/5 slaves were counted at the census as 3/5 of a human being. Also, it was common to put the name of the new property as enslaved person. Animals counts were listed ahead of how many slaves were bought. So that was another thing that I would like for people to understand, that we weren't counted as a full human being, and that because of that, we were not counted ahead of the animals that may have been purchased that day. So that's about all I have to add about enslaved people. There was no good enslavement of any human being in the American enslavement system, even if they were treated fairly by their owners. They still were enslaved and would always be enslaved until they could buy their, if they were allowed to buy their freedom. So that's about it, Pat. I think Annette Blake was on the screen to do her presentation.
There are several people. There's Annette, there's Joyce.
Annette Joyce.
There are several people that I know that this Washington audience would love to know about, the Silver Spring audience. Would one of you ladies volunteer?
Well, I am Elizabeth Keckley. I was born in Dinwiddie County Courthouse in Virginia around 1818. And I'm known today because I became President Abraham Lincoln's wife's dressmaker, confidant, and closest friend. When I was born, I found out as a teenager that my master was actually my father. And because of this, I found that I was frequently not treated well because the mistress could see the resemblance between myself and her children. Throughout my life, I was a slave for about 35 years. And throughout my life, I was considered to be not what they wanted a slave to be. I was not docile enough. So I was frequently beaten and abused. I had one child. And when the Civil War came, he enlisted as a white man and he was killed. And when my master's family moved to Missouri, I was able to make clothing for the various ladies in what you could consider high society at that point in time, because I had learned from my mother how to make these fabulous ball gowns that you see pictured in many places. When I was able to purchase my freedom for myself and my son for $200, I first came to Baltimore and then I came to Washington, D.C. I designed for congressmen's wives, and including, I was also the dressmaker for many of the outstanding people in Washington, D.C. at that time. And one of them referred me to Mary Todd Lincoln. And I was to become her dressmaker as long as my fees were not too high. We became actually very good friends, and which was very unusual for a former slave and the first lady of the land to be friends. But we had some things in common. And she was actually helped to be raised by one of her father's slaves. And I, having been a slave, I knew how I was supposed to act. However, I was not subservient, but I was very respectful. And this is how we were able to become friends. Unfortunately, when President Lincoln was assassinated, there was an awful lot of bad publicity for Mrs. Lincoln. And I wrote a book to try to help her and try to help the country to see what she was all about and what she was like, and that she was not the way that they thought she was. Because Northerners feared her because she was from Kentucky. Southerners hated her because she was supporting her husband. So I wrote this book. It's called Behind the Scenes, 30 Years a Slave, 4 Years in the White House. And it was to help Mrs. Lincoln, not to harm her. The publisher, in order to make sure that what I was telling was the truth, had me to give him some letters that I had received from Mrs. Lincoln. And this was the problem that resulted in the loss of our friendship, because he put those letters at the back of the book, and it showed the country a side of Mrs. Lincoln that she felt, and especially her son felt, was worse than anything else that had happened to her. And it resulted in, as I said, the end of our friendship. Now, if you would like to know more about what happened during the time of the war, get the book, 30 Years a Slave. I'm sorry, Behind the Scenes, 30 Years a Slave, 4 Years in the White House. And then you will understand what happened during that time period. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joyce. And Annette, did you have anything you wanted to say? No? All right, then I think that unless there's another lady that would like to share briefly with us who you are, I think that we will just take questions, which is always a great part of a program from our audience.
Okay, who has a question? You can use your little raise your hand symbol under the reactions.
Mhm.
Okay, or a question or a comment? I'm looking in gallery mode now. So, okay, Ella. Hello, Ella.
Hello there. Good evening. I want to thank the ladies for such a marvelous job. In fact, as I was listening, I felt that they had really embodied these ladies, and it was just a wonderful rendition of how women felt at that time. And also, I'm so glad that they chose women. These were women who cared about making a difference, women who were educated, women who wanted to see life better for the community. And so I have to thank each one for the wonderful job that they did this evening. Thank you so much.
We try to take ladies who you may never have heard of. That was very important, Ella, as you say. And you know, everybody knows about Harriet Tubman and Sojourner Truth and some of those ladies, but, you know, who knows about Charlotte Fortune, or who knows about Hallie Quinn Brown? Who knows about Frances Rollin, or, you know, many of these ladies, they did an awful lot, but they were behind the scenes, and they didn't mind being behind the scenes because they were working towards a greater goal, to make America a country that we could all be proud of.
Yes, definitely. It's wonderful that you're doing this work of telling their stories too. I see that Gwendolyn Davis has a comment or a question, if we could, and if you can unmute, please.
I've said I put in the chat as to how much I really appreciated the program and was just impressed by the presentations. And I wanted to had two questions, related questions. Are these presentations in print anywhere that they can be circulated in a booklet form, or some way that they can be shared? I think there was, even though the best part of this is seeing the reenactment, but I think if folks had a chance to actually read some of the narratives about these women, that would be interesting too. And then secondarily, are there plans to put the show on the road?
Thank you for asking that question. We did some years ago have a tape of the various women, and it was quite lovely. It was put on a diskette of some kind that back in those days, about maybe this is about 10 years ago. And somewhere in, we're with the African American Civil War Museum, and somewhere in the transition from one place to another, it got lost. And so we have never done another one since. That there was someone in Virginia who saw us about 3 years ago, and he has offered to do a video of us, but we were so busy. And so before the pandemic, we were very, very busy, and we just couldn't seem to get together with him on a schedule. He was waiting for us, and we just weren't able to do it. We do some travel from time to time, and there are certain things that we're in, like the Memorial Day Parade. We don't get to perform, but we do things in schools and things of that nature. We also encourage women when we travel to other parts of the city, and even in this city, if they're interested in becoming a part of this mission, to get in touch with us and join us. And you know, you can get a character and bring her alive and show her what she did that made a difference. And I think I answered all of your questions.
Yeah, okay. Oh, well, we certainly would like to have you come further south.
We are open to traveling. We definitely are. We've been as far as Oregon, and we've been in South Carolina, and some of the other Tennessee, and far north is New York.
Okay, okay.
and Kentucky. So we've done a little bit of traveling. We were to do more traveling, and then the pandemic came, and so everything became virtual.
Virtual. I understand.
But
Thank you very much.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you. We enjoy this. This thing is nothing that I'm sure none of us would have thought 30, 40 years ago we'd ever be doing anything like this. In fact, I never like to use the word hate, but in school I hated history.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Okay.
That brings me to you would never know you hate history. Uh, and I actually heard you were a member of Washington, D.C.'s oldest residence. I found out I'm qualified to join because I've lived in D.C. since '99. So I've talked with Carolyn. I'm going to join and go to the next luncheon.
Oh, wonderful.
Because you help really nurture more of the interest in me of this period. I was wondering when, knowing that you go out to the schools, what age group do you tend to do the reenactments for?
Well, it doesn't matter. We've only done about 3 or 4 high schools, but I guess you would say the middle school is the age group that we have done the most to, and some elementary schools. And of course, we've never had a discipline problem when we walk in, because first of all, they've never seen anybody dressed the way we dress. And by the time we leave, every little girl wants a dress just like ours. and so they want their picture taken, they want an autograph. They've never seen anything like this before. And I think that in educating our next generation of leaders, we're going to have to do more than put them in a book, because now most of them don't know how to write their name, and all of the founding documents are handwritten. They're not going to be able to read that. And that's what makes it so sad about, the fact that the educational system, there's something wrong with it and it needs to be fixed. And so if we can tell them what we did and then talk to them and ask them what they want to do, that makes the difference. That gives them a view, because, I still don't know, what do you want to be when you grow up? And many times that kind of stuns them because they're not sure what they want to be, and they've not been given a vision of what they could be. And that's very, very sad.
Well, Pat, I like how you kind of bring Hallie into the 2021 and have her give her opinion on things. It's so interesting. So she does the time travel too. And yeah, that really gives a nice perspective, interesting perspective.
Yes.
And I'm bringing the other ladies back on. I'm curious to know, how did you choose your characters?
Well, I have to say, as one of the ladies, she's not with us tonight. I think we were in Tennessee, and a reporter asked us, how did we choose our characters? And she very simply said, my character chose me. And I think we can all say that. We're all in some way connected with our characters. And I see Ruby there tonight. It's just a real joy I didn't know anything about Hallie Quinn Brown, but after I read some things about her, for many years, people thought I was an educator and I wouldn't open my mouth. I don't know how they thought that and why they thought that. But, and I was just to give you an example, one night I was in the Giant shopping, and I was on an aisle picking out some stuff. And at the opposite end was this lady trying to get some supplies for her daughter because she had to do a project in school. And I was minding my own business. I was up at the other end looking at the food, and she said, go up there and ask that lady at the end of the aisle. She's a teacher. And I said, ma'am, I'm not a teacher. And I said, but what does your daughter want to do? And so she explained to me what she's looking at. And so I gave her some suggestions. Only thing I ever taught was Sunday school. My heart and respect goes out to the teachers in our public school system, or wherever they're teaching. And I gave her some examples and she said, see, I told you she was a teacher. So our characters, more or less, and I do like teaching, I really do, more or less had some integral part of our lives. And we felt like we could tell her story. And of course, the Harlequin Brown story is a university, that houses all of her material, and she's well known in the educational system for what she did. And I just think it's a shame no one knows about her. And I didn't even bring out to you a third of what her life was all about tonight, but just trying to get you in the mood of the period she lived in, and she wasn't afraid to speak, and she loved people and she loved children. So, I think maybe somebody else has another idea of how they came, but it just seems like our characters picked us. Joyce's mother was a famous seamstress and is in the African history.
The National Museum of African American History and Culture.
Oh, yes.
The collection is there now.
Her selection of fashions.
And that's how I actually got started. I did some research. I went down to Dinwiddie County for my mother. She did a tribute to Elizabeth Keckley, an exhibition. And she asked me if I would research the person. And I did. And that's how I had a dress created for me that would look like one that Keckley would have made. And I met the ladies at the memorial, at the African American Civil War Memorial, when we were going to be hostesses for the museum. And that's where it all started.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Well, my character, I didn't know anything about when I decided who I would select. Just the fact that I knew there was a Grimke school, and the Grimke family had been associated with it. So I said, well, let me look into the Charlotte Fortin Grimke. And the more that I looked into her life, the more I found that we had some things in common. I wasn't a teacher, but again, like my sister, for some reason, people always thought in my adult life that I was a teacher. And I thought maybe it was the glasses or whatever, but I never taught more than Sunday school myself. But I'm very flattered that the teacher who influenced me most was my elementary school teacher. And I was so honored to be able to finally talk her into retirement, or share her lack of enthusiasm for retirement, and give her a retirement party this year. So she's been teaching since 1952 and just retired this year. So that was really something. But as far as Charlotte Fortin Grimke goes, she married late in life. She was 41. I married when I was 49. She sewed. She made her clothes and clothes for other people. And I've made some of my outfits, or put them together, I'll say. She liked or wrote poetry. And I liked writing poetry also when I was young. So there were a lot of things similarities that I found out about her. She journaled. I kept a diary for a number of years when I was a teenager. So there were a lot of things I found out about her after I really selected her. But I really wasn't prepared tonight to speak. And I didn't know that I was going to have to do that. So my apologies for, kind of stumbling through a presentation, but these ladies, it's important to kind of be in your character when you're doing a presentation. And I had just finished cooking and eating and cleaning up the kitchen. So I was ready just to sit and listen. But anyway, thank you for including me.
Thank you so much, Teresa. Before we go into the next lady to share, I wanted to share some of the, there's a lot of wonderful comments in the chat, which people watching the recording later or watching live on Facebook cannot see. Catrice says, thank you for a lovely evening. Nora says, it's great to, it's great to see more women in the Civil War reenactor space. I used to do Clara Barton, but at the battle reenactments, there's so little encouragement for women to participate. You all look perfect. Your stories are so interesting. Your performance is compelling, especially Miss Hattie. And Gwendolyn says this reenactment of the lives, she shared already, but this reenactment of the lives work of freed Black women from the mid-1800s is so interesting, timely, and valuable. I would love to see the presentation in a live setting, and certainly would want to have it shown to middle and high school students of all races. Gwendolyn Davis in Atlanta, Georgia. She says she has to sign off soon, but would appreciate getting more information about future programs. Fred says, wonderful program. Let's see, I'm skipping around here. This is a terrific presentation and should be posted for public viewing. This is on Silver Spring Town Center's group page on Facebook, and we will eventually get it uploaded to Silver Spring Town Center's YouTube channel. Cassandra says, wonderful presentation. Thanks for your passion and commitment to helping us all understand. And other comments about women were never, front and center in the history discussions. Miss Joyce, I love your dress. My mom says very enjoyable. Oh, I just lost it. Thank you all so much. My mom is Barbara. And SSTCI has featured your group in person a couple of times at least, and we look forward to having you back when we are back in person indoor. And someone else asks, I absolutely loved this. When will you wonderful ladies be presenting this live in person? I think she means, because we are live right now. Anyway, if you want to ponder some of those questions, but I'll go to the other ladies to share how they found their character. Maybe Bobby?
Yeah.
Or Ruby?
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm on the battlefield for my Lord, for my Lord. Oh, I'm on the battlefield for my Lord, and I promised him that I'm going to serve him till I die. I'm on the battlefield for my Lord. Good evening, everyone. I'm Evangelist Amanda Berry Smith. I was born in Maryland under on a slave plantation. My father was a slave, my mama was a slave, and I was the oldest in my family. During my growing up, I was able to work my way out of slavery and end up becoming an evangelist. I was one of the first African American women to preach in a pulpit in an AME church. I was one of the first African American women to travel abroad as a missionary. I was one of the first American women, African-American women, to write my own autobiography. I was the first African-American woman in Chicago to open up an orphanage. So I've done a lot in my life. But the reason why I ended up being Amanda Berry Smith, I am a Reverend Dr. Ruby Thomas. Early in my years, I portrayed several women, which was called The Famous and the Forgotten Women from Maryland. And one of the characters was Amanda Berry Smith. But at that time, and I was yet to be ordained as a reverend, that had no idea I would ever become a reverend, but I started looking more closely at her life, and I saw so many patterns. She picked me. I didn't pick her. And now I was portraying an evangelist when I was not an evangelist. But as I looked at her life, she made a lot of things that were first. I was the first African-American woman to preach in the pulpit at my church. I was the first African woman to be licensed at my church. I was the first African woman to receive a ordination of reverend in my church. So there's so many similarities between Amanda Berry Smith and myself. And I'm so glad that I represent her to let the world know that women back in the early 1800s were doing things in the pulpit way back then, where even today, they're not allowed in the pulpit. But if God can use a donkey, he can use anyone to preach and teach his word. That concludes.
Great.
Amen. Let the church say amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
And Ruby, can you tell us how you found your character?
Well, I was portraying about 9 different characters. I had a skit back in the 1980s that I researched, and I was going around throughout the schools and different places. And Amanda Berry Smith was one of the persons that I was portraying. And I dropped all the others and I just stuck with Amanda Berry Smith.
Okay, great. And I think Bobby was going to share how she found hers.
Yes, can you hear me? I'm not sure. Well, as I explained before, I was reading slave narrative. I worked at the African American Civil War Museum, so I had this massive library there to choose from. And the more I read about the enslaved people and what their responses to the I'll call them reporters, starting in 1837, you could tell that even the ones that were treated well, they always longed to be free. And I realized that I could have picked a known person to portray, but I felt that I needed to speak for the enslaved person that really never had a voice. And so I made up Hattie using I call it a script. It's much longer than what I presented, but I hope people got the idea of the suffering these people went through in my portrayal of Hattie. So now all of us, the ones that are featured here today and some others, we were trained by Harry Jones, who was the assistant director at the African American Civil War Museum and the curator of our the new display. He's deceased now, but he left a great legacy with us. And we always try to be very accurate in our portrayal of these ladies. That's about it for me.
Right. Did everyone share their how they found their character?
I see Alma Harris is not active, but she's on, she's present.
Oh, okay. Let me see if I can pull her in. Is her video showing? Alma?
I think her son has to unmute her.
Okay.
Steve.
We have so many people on the call. I have to scroll through them to find where we are here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't know why it's not coming up.
Hmm.
Oh, here she is. Here she is. Okay, so you just unmute. Hi, Alma. Just click unmute there.
Alma, can Steve unmute you? Yes, Steve, can you unmute her?
Here we go. Go ahead.
Okay, okay.
Good evening, ladies.
Good evening.
Good evening.
It was a delight to hear from all of you. I am a little minus in areas of my brain. And I have been trying to recall. Now I know everybody, all the ladies, but I'm trying to recall more about the character that I had. And I've been fumbling around in my mind. And I came up with the name, but I can't you know, talk about it. Susie King Taylor. And I guess Pat knows who she was. I can't even remember that. But it was a joy to hear and see all of you tonight. I have a few minuses going on, but I'm still here.
Alma is one of our jewels, and she definitely, when she used to do Susie King Taylor and carry her little basket with her school books in them, she told us about her life, and also the fact of how she helped as a nurse, helped the U.S. colored troops. So we will always treasure her, and she's just not been well. But other than that, she's definitely there with us, and she'll always be a freed lady. So, yeah, so thank you, Alma. So I'll just try to take a look and see if there's one more lady that's with us tonight. Oh, I see some wonderful people out there. But
Charlotte, Pat, is Charlotte one of your group?
Charlotte is not in the group. She's just a friend of the group.
Can I make a comment?
Go ahead, Bobby.
When I first encountered Freed, they were newly forming. I was told by Dr. Smith. I was going to use them as a project in one of my anthropology classes at the University of Maryland in College Park. And because my counselor said it was very, very unusual for Black people to want to reenact the past years of slavery. And I have found that, and I have encountered that when we travel around the United States doing our presentations. And I just wanted to bring that out. It's very unusual for Black people to do what we're doing. And so we are in the forefront, I think. We're brave, very brave women.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you, Bobby. Well, we know there are a lot of things going on this week because it's Veterans we. Our museum is going to have a program at 11 o'clock on Thursday, and we know that there are at least 15 other programs going on around the Washington metropolitan area where there are tribute to our veterans. But if there's anyone who's a veteran in our audience, we want to thank you for your service to this country. And I just don't know how to say that we do appreciate all the service that you do. And we're thankful. We know you have to make sacrifices. And had it not been for the US colored troops, as President Lincoln said, the North wouldn't have won. And so we have to, and sometimes it causes us to fight for what we want or to preserve what we want. And we don't take it lightly, but I just pray the next generation will have a sense of gratitude and courage to stand up for what is right, that we don't lose the freedoms we so much possess, and that we shouldn't take it lightly. And organizations like, the Silver Spring Town Center and other organizations we know of, you're doing a wonderful job of trying to dig out the best in us all to help us keep what we have, but not only accept others and help them. Who knows, but that it may be the fact that the immigrants who are coming here now appreciate this freedom more than we seem to. And they may be the saving cause that'll keep it because they don't take it lightly. We've always been sort of blasé about it, and we think it's something we should have, or we are owed or something like that. But other people matter, not just myself. And we've just got to reach out to others. And that's when the racial problems will disappear. When we know how to stop naming ourselves as this and that, but try to find something worth in another person. And when we're in schools, that's the one thing that I tell the children, I don't care what age they are, it's not going to be easy. You're going to have courage and guts to stand up for what you know is right. Don't worry about what you don't know. Just leave that to God or somebody else. You do what's right. And if you do what's right, you might find another little friend who says, oh, I want to join him or her or something like that. And before you know it, there'll be two of you. And then before you know it, there might be three of you, and you can stand together. I know my sister and I would say that, through life, through school, and then afterwards in life, we took on, our mother always knew she had 5 daughters, even though there were just 2 of us, and she had 2 or 3 sons, because we made a point to stick with people that we knew were doing the right thing and would help us continue to do the right thing. But it's tough today. The young people, they just don't know, and they don't have anybody to push them in the right direction sometimes. So, if these little sketches of women's lives help anybody at all, we are more than grateful to do them. And we don't charge a large fee. You can't get somebody unless you sign a contract. Well, we don't sign contracts unless it's required by the organization. And of course, we've been in government and other places where maybe it's necessary to sign a contract. But we come for free as long as we're in the Washington metropolitan area. If we have to travel across the country, we do not charge a fee. The host organization just has to take care of all of our expenses, getting us there, taking care of us for our meals and hotel once we're there. And then we come away happily and come back home. So this is not a money-making venture or one where we feel like anybody who really feels as though that they might like make a living off of this, or it might be beneficial to them financially. We understand that it's hard times, but they have to understand that we're on a mission and we don't want money to get in the way. So I don't know if anybody else cares to say anything about Freed and
You do it for the love of it. That's
yes,
evident. Yeah.
yes.
And you're an inspiration to so many, and especially the young people who get to see you. I hope you're able to reach more of them. I hope we have more opportunity to meet in person soon. You know, I see Vivian has a question. Any other final questions before we wrap up? Vivian, did you have a question or comment?
Well, it's more of a comment. I want to say that I enjoyed everything, and it was really very inspirational. And you're right about the young people. They think they know it all, but they don't know anything, not really. And they got a lot to learn, because I know when I was young, I thought I knew everything. And I turned 69 last month, and I still got a lot to learn. We all do. You never stop learning.
No, that's right. That's right. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other final thoughts to share before we close from either the audience or the ladies? We're
I have
continuing to
one that
get
I'd
great
mention.
comments.
I have
Yeah.
one thing I'd like to mention. A couple of us are actually descendants of United States colored troops. And I did want to mention that.
Oh, great.
I see Professor Sandra Jowers in our audience. Did I see her?
Yes, Professor Sandra Jowers Barber.
Yes, yes. She's quite a teacher. And on the Historic Preservation
Hello, Professor
Review Board
Jowers.
of Washington, D.C.
Thank you so much. I am so enjoying this. I am sitting here thinking of of opportunities for Free to come to the community college. We are really excited about the work that you do. And one of the things we do at the college is experiential learning. As a public historian, of course, it's always important and significant for students to actually hear reenactors and to get that firsthand primary, the words from the historical actor's perspective. So I thank you for this program. This is just wonderful. So thank you very much for all that you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
I agree. Thank you, Lisa. This is really outstanding.
Thank you. Yes, thank you everyone for joining us. It's been another wonderful program. We look forward to having Freed, the Female Reenactors of Distinction, back. And if you'd like to share the video, refer people to Silver Spring Town Center's Facebook page. I can also send you a link to share with others if you'd like to email me. And we always love having you ladies here. You know, we had standing room only when you performed the last time for us live. And I was worried the fire department was going to come and yeah. So you're always such a favorite program for us, and Silver Spring Town Center appreciates you. And Pat Tyson is one of our new board members of Silver Spring Town Center. After all these years of being our friend, she's joined our board, and we love her, and we love all of the ladies here. And I hope you can join us again, convey our gratitude to all of our veterans who've served. And as we celebrate Veterans Day this week, please join us for our 13th annual Tribute to America's Veterans concert at 7 o'clock, featuring the Archie Edwards Blues Heritage Foundation's ensemble. It's a variety of local blues musicians who are excellent. So thank you again to everyone for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Soon. Have a good night.
Thank you. You
Right.
too.
Good night,
Bye.
night, my free sister.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night,